So analysis is a field of fields, and there are so many ways in which I could make a video that's titled Real Analysis Books for Self-Study. I will link in the description of the video many videos that I've made before. Now, the way that analysis has come, I've been able to do analysis in myself learning thing is it was the second one that I did. I did number theory, then analysis, real and complex, and then I did number theory, and and then I did linear algebra, and now I'm doing abstract algebra. And so what I'm getting to with that is that there's a lot of if I knew then what I know now in the case of analysis, and there's just a lot to it. So getting back to what this video is about, I'm going to talk about books that are just a real line and books that are R to the N, or what somebody would call vector calculus. Not here differential geometry, but in my case, when I studied analysis, I did look into differential geometry books fairly often, and also for some topology books. So I'll show some of that. And then also I worked through a number systems book. So I'll talk about the real line books, the R to the M books, the basic references, which is really just my personal sample, and then other references, which is not exhaustive. Again, this is like half of a library condensed down to 20, I think it's 28 books that I'm talking about here. But I am not gonna do what a lot of people do in YouTube, which is they give you what you really want to know, like the gist of the thing at the very end so you can watch more. I don't really care for that. I want you to watch of this video what you can get out of it that's going to help you. And so the punchline comes first. Okay, so let's go to the punchline. The punchline is, okay, what is the punchline? Is that if I had to do it all over again, I would still do Wade as the first book. Why? Wade is a great survey book, okay? It does R to the N, and it even has a Fourier series chapter, or Fourier analysis chapter, okay? Then I would follow it up with, I think I would do Bartle and Sherbert next, okay? Now, I have videos for all of these books in this channel, so I'm not going to go into the books and show the table of contents. And also, I don't want this video to be extremely long. So I would do Bartle and Sherbert. It is really basic. It's only R. It has no R to the N. It's got nothing on Fourier series. It does have a topology chapter at the end. It is really, really good. It's got answers in the back. Okay, very important. And both of these books have answers in the back. Very important. So I'll show them briefly and then take them off picture. So yeah, Wade has R, your basic stuff for R, continuity, differentiability, integrability, infinite series of real numbers and of functions. Then gets into the whole R to the N metric spaces, differentiability in R to the N, integration in R to the N, then all the way to Stokes' theorem, and then Fourier series. I know it's pronounced differently, but I'm going to leave it at that. And differentiable manifolds, which gets into differential geometry. So it's a great survey book. So then I would follow it up with Bartle and Sherbert, which, as I mentioned, and of course this is an earlier edition, you can find a newer edition, has the same thing that I just showed you with Wade for R, limits, sequences, series, the real numbers, continuous functions, differentiation, the Riemann integral, sequences of functions, infinite series, the Riemann integral, and topology. Also, in the case of Bartle and Sherbert, it's got a really good discussion of all the different types of integration, including Lebesgue and the Kurzweil integration. Yeah, so the Kurzweil integral. So it's fairly complete. Then after that, in the background, there's always going to be Baby Rudin. I think it's a good book to always have if you're doing analysis, even though you're going to, maybe come to dislike it or fear it because it's got so much, but it's also arcane, in my opinion. I have videos about this great book elsewhere, and I'll put links to it. So this is an Indian printing, and it's cheap. I think you can still get it these days. So I would have in the background, sort of like the specter, I would have Baby Rudin around, okay, and be looking into it. It's got great examples. It's got some great things, okay. People can knock Baby Rudin as a rite of passage and how hard it is, but it's got a lot. And Baby Rudin's got the construction of the reals, which in my opinion is done in a way that no normal human could ever understand it. At least I really had a hard time. But the Dedekind construction is very important to understand the real numbers. And this will be a segue to Mendelson, which I'll discuss next. It's got a good topology chapter, sequences, series, continuity, differentiation, the integral, sequences of functions, some special functions. Then it's got some R to the n content, functions of several variables. And then it's got like the differentiable manifolds section in Wade, chapter in Wade. It's got a bunch of differential geometry and the Lebesgue theory. So it's got a lot. And yeah, it just does. So it's always gonna be in the background. I believe anybody who wants to study analysis today in 2025, or even like 5 years from now in 2030, I think I would recommend having this book. Now, some may consider it overkill to go through a number systems book, but I did not, and I still profit from having gone through this wonderful book, Mendelson, which I have a playlist for in my channel. Mendelson really helped me, not just with things that I learned for analysis, such as the construction of the reals, but also it's actually helped me with things like zero divisors. There are things in here that I still think about, even in abstract algebra. Great book. I did it cover to cover. And, old-fashioned. It's a Dover book, very cheap. Yeah, so a lot of set theory, then natural numbers, integers, rationals, the real number system, and then some really great appendices, all right? There it is, Appendix F, Construction of Dedekind Cuts. Great book. All right, then after all that, okay, I would do Pugh. I did not know about this great book when I was doing analysis, which is my loss. But Pugh really does attempt to do a Baby Rudin, although I believe he does not cover as much as Baby Rudin. The font's very big. You can fit this whole book. If you printed it in smaller font, this book is really more like a 300-page book. But yeah, excellently well written. I've got a video about this book as well. If you saw the table of contents that I showed you for Baby Rudin, it's got the real numbers, topology, but then it also has multivariable calculus and it has the Lebesgue theory. It doesn't have answers in the back. Baby Rudin doesn't have answers in the back either. Neither does Mendelson. But I think this is a great book. I would definitely go through this book if I was doing analysis again. These would be like the books that I cover to cover, for sure. And then I would cap it off with Analysis of Manifolds by Moncrist, even though I think this is a very hard book and it's almost like a Baby Rudin type book. But as of now, I don't think I have come across a vector calculus book that is hard enough, and I would want to do one that was hard. I would want to do one where I would get the concepts once and for all. And I do believe that Moncrist, I believe that this book would do the trick. It's got a lot of content. All right. So if I go through the table of contents, yeah, it's just R to the n, really. It's just all R to the n. Manifolds, differential forms, Stokes theorem, closed forms, differentiable manifolds, just like Wade had. So I think that would be, okay, what I consider, Moncrist manifolds, okay? Then after this, okay, so I've run through what I think is this right here, okay? This is what I've run through, what the basic run would be. Now, there are references. This field analysis, I believe, just has references. It has books that I believe would help somebody to have. And if you're in the self-study business, like I am, unfortunately, you're going to basically be building a personal library of sorts. I think that just comes with the territory. And so the only topology book that I would have for sure would be Muncrief's topology. Now, you're not going to use the whole book, because the whole book is point set topology and algebraic topology. It's really a broad survey of all of topology. So you're going to be using, for all these analysis books, the early parts of this book. Everything in here, all the way to here, okay? All the way to Berry category. And then once you talk about the fundamental group, that's something else. Algebraic topology. You're not going to be doing it in analysis, in my opinion. So the first half, but this book is so good that I would say, yeah, I would have a copy. So yeah, so we talked about number systems, topology. Then what are your basic references? So there's going to be several types. You're going to have basic references, in my opinion, books where you're trying to figure out something and you're going to go look it up from a different point of view, okay? And so the Venn diagram that I would draw for that goes something like this. All these books in R are doing this, okay? Some are like that. And then R to the N one, the R to the N content is just a repeat of this, but R to the N, okay? And likewise, the books are doing this, okay? So you're going to want to have books that cover this for sure. This is what I've shown. And sometimes they'll diverge a little and have something on the side. But then it's going to be nice for you to have references outside. Those are what I call my other references. And I'll talk about them separately. But now let's go to, okay, so you're learning real analysis, and you're trying to understand all these concepts. And occasionally you're trying to work a problem, and the book that you're working on doesn't have a lot about that. So in my case, these are the books that I ended up having. I have others, but these are the ones that I ended up using, which is very different. Mathematical Analysis by Apostle, which could very well be a baby Rudin substitute to some people, and I would believe that would be fair. It's got a lot of content. It's an old book. This is an Indian print again. And it's got some complex stuff. Point set topology, set theory, limits, derivatives, bounded variation, the Riemann integral, infinite series, sequences of functions, the Lebesgue integral. It's got Fourier series. I know I mispronounced it. R to the N, implicit functions, more R to the N, multiple Lebesgue integrals. That's pretty cool. And then Cauchy's theorem and the residue calculus. So it's got a lot. No answers in the back, but I ended up using this book more often than not. Then, of course, there's what I call TBB, Thomson, Bruckner. And I ended up working through some of this book. I wish I had worked through the whole book. I just ran out. And if you watch my 17 months of analysis video, you will see how I just threw in the towel and moved on after 17 months, because it's just infinite. It felt like that, just like the real numbers. Sequences, infinite sums, very long chapters, lots of content, lots of problems, no answers in the back, but a lot of discussions and a lot of problems. Continuous functions, differentiation, integration, sequences of series of functions, power series, great chapter on power series, R to the N, no integration of R to the N, only differentiation, which is a shame. I always felt that there should have been another chapter that was integration in R to the N, but they just did this. But yeah, this book is great. It's got a lot. And I believe it's not an expensive book either. Okay, so then, and I've made videos about this family of books. I did have these books. This is a reprint of an older book. This is one of the older books. There are various flavors of the Protter and Morrey family of analysis books. But the red one and the one from Springer Verlag are pretty good, and I use them often. The red one is just a classic big old analysis book. Partial differentiation, multiple integration. It's got R to the N. It's got linear algebra. It's got vector spaces. I mean, this book's got a lot of content that is not normally treated in a regular analysis book. So this was a sort of like an R to the N reference often for me. Yeah, definitely a good reference. And then the Protter and Morrey, this one from Springer Verlag. Yeah, the real line. Yeah, I found a lot of really good tidbits in here. The implicit function theorem. I remember when I was looking at some of the theorems that this book had really good explanations, really good examples, even though it didn't have answers in the back, but it had words that I needed to read. Okay, so I'm still going through basic references. Now let's go to also, when you talk about analysis on the real line, besides Pugh, I always also tell people about this great book, Abbott, which is excellently well written. It doesn't have the longer content that Pugh has, but it's really well written. It's just the real line analysis book, Riemann integral. It's got a little bit of the Dedekind construction in the back, but not that much. Yeah. This is another very readable book that I did read from occasionally. I read a few chapters. I should have done more problems. I always complain about that to myself when I did analysis. Then let's go to also the other references for R to the N before I get to the final few books that are really what I call the other references. I'm still in the basic references. Yeah, Spivak's Manifolds book. Someday I would like to read it when I do the Moncrief's book, Moncrief's. It's very small, and so you would think, I shouldn't look into it, but it's Spivak, so I'm gonna err on the side of doing something about this book someday. I just received this book recently. A wonderful subscriber recommended it. I haven't gone through it enough to know, but just from looking at the table of contents, and I may make a book about it, just go through it. Even though these days I'm doing a lot of abstract algebra, I don't have a lot of time to go into analysis books and spend a couple of weeks on them. But yeah, algebra of R to the N, the geometry, linear functions, mappings, functions, scalar value, vector functions, vector integrals, and Stokes' theorem. And this book, which I love about it, has answers in the back to some problems. That, my friends, is precious. And it could very well be that when I get around to doing a round of vector analysis, vector calculus, which I really want to do, it could end up being that instead of Moncrief's, I end up working through this book, just because I always like to have answers in the back as a self-learner. Yeah. This book seems to have a lot of what I need, but again, it's just fresh. I just received it, and so I'm not going to make any other statements on what I'm saying now. But yeah, as a self-learner, you're a hobbyist. You always reserve the right to change books, to do whatever you want. And I would reserve that right. And it could be that this is the book that I end up doing when I go through vector calculus. Okay, so then now, I'm still in, there's a lot of books in here. I'm still in the books that you would have, just because sometimes you're going to be solving problems. And since you don't have a faculty member to help you, you're going to have to do it yourself. This is the calculus book that I use. I used this book almost 40 years ago in 1986 when I was a freshman. Thomas and Finney, it's an MIT book. It went through a gazillion editions. And so, yeah, I would of course, when I did analysis, I would have a good old calculus book in case I needed to refresh something. I know I did. Now, of course, in the case of Spivak's calculus book, it's a great book to have, but I have found it to be, it's almost like an intro to analysis book. I've used it as well. Yeah, it's a really good book. But yeah, I haven't used it enough. And that tells me that if it had had some answers in the back, if it had had a couple of more baby sections for babies like me, I would probably have picked up this book more. I ended up not picking it up as often as I should. Okay, then also, you're going to want to have some baby vector calculus books when you get to R to the end. Now, pick one versus the other, Colley's or Marsden and Tromba. I prefer Marsden and Tromba, but I have no idea why. I made a video comparing these books. I'm not going to show them any further. I'm just going to show them here because I'm towards the end of what I need to show. And then finally, if you've been watching all along, boy, you've got an appetite for analysis, and that's great. Then now we enter the other references. Okay, now we're in the other references. And other references, I have many. I'm only showing a few. I probably have like another 10 historical books, books that are quirky on some aspect of analysis. You're going to come across them, and it'll be your choice which ones to get. These are the ones that I have. Bressoud's Radical Approach to Lebesgue Integration and A Radical Approach to Real Analysis. I've shown these books elsewhere. I'm just going to mention them and move on. Of course, the series by Shakarshi and Stein, all 4 volumes, which I've made videos of before. You can look them up also. I'm going to link them in the description. These are a little more advanced for a first pass, in my opinion. But yeah, if you have the money, they're very readable. People rave about them. I've made videos about them. Someday I would love to go through all of them, but I still consider them references. Also, and this may be an unpopular view, I do consider Tao's books references only because they're lecture series type of books. And I think for self-learning, a lecture notes, very brief type delivery, like Tao does, I believe it's harder on the self-learner. Although it's Tao, these are great books, and I did reference them every now and then, but I found that other books had more for what I was looking for at the time. And I also reserve the right as a hobbyist to revise that point of view and then come back, I don't know, a few years down the line when I do get back to analysis, raving about this book. I could see myself doing that. I do use Tao's first paragraph a lot. I've read it many times of how he describes the various types of analysis. Okay, so, I mean, he's one of the masters of the game of mathematics. So, yeah, I do reserve the right to completely fall in love with Tao's book. Then also, there's always some other differential geometry books that it doesn't hurt to have in your library. This is a very basic one that I have. I have a bunch of others, but one book that definitely is on my radar to read someday when I do get back to analysis is this book by Loring Tu, An Introduction to Manifolds. And I'll briefly go through this book and then call it quits, because I think I'm near the end. And if you made it this far, I commend you. Because based on the data that I get from YouTube, I think like 2% of viewers end up at this junction. Yeah. So I plan to make a video of this book, but again, I've been very busy with abstract algebra. I think Loring 2 has a second book that follows this one, or a third, I don't know. I think also Lee has a bunch of books on manifolds. There are some great books on manifolds out there that I want to do someday. The Exterior Algebra. I mean, the book is about manifolds. Smooth maps on a manifold, tangent space, submanifolds, tangent bundles, vector fields, Lie groups and Lie algebras, differential forms, very useful for that chapter in Baby Rudin. And then look at that, integration of manifolds. Yeah, definitely material that I would love to cover someday. RAM cohomology, homotopy, point set topology, linear algebra, quaternions. These are appendices. And there are solutions to selected exercise. Oh my, oh my. Yeah, there are solutions to some. And then some hints. It's better than nothing and actually quite a lot. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, this book is really on my list. It could end up even going all the way up to the basic sequence. Let me shift books around to show what I think the basic sequence is. Yeah, I'm gonna say that a good basic sequence for me is gonna be these 6 books with Baby Rudin in the background. Yeah, I would say so. Let me zoom it out. Yeah, so it'll probably be, I've already done Wade, but I would revisit just to check what I did last time. Some Bartle and Sherbert. I've already done Mendelson. So in my case, I would do a review of all these books, review of Baby Rudin, and then go through and do these in this order. Yeah, I would do Pugh, followed by the Manifolds book, followed by Flanagan and Kasdan. I think I would probably end up doing this book, of course, with all these other references. I hope that helps you.